Recording in progress.
No, okay. Okay, very good. So today we're going to discuss Chanukah, and for those of you who have the book, The Concise Guide to Halacha, which you hopefully should have, um, Chanukah is page 244, and I suggest that after the shiur, you also, first of all, we're going to go through it today, and also keep it in. You can review it in the next few days so that you are prepared for Chanukah with all the different halachot. And if any of you do not have it yet and you're new to the shiur, you can ask me and I can share a PDF, but I highly suggest that you purchase it online for yourselves. So we're going to go through the different interesting halachot regarding Chanukah. But one thing that I want to take us back to the one of the first shiurim that we had in this series of the Sunday shiurim, in which we talked about the difference between um, holidays and whether they are mideoraita or midirabanan, whether they come from the Torah and from our sages. And um, and it's very important when you talk about, oh, we have a festival coming up, to realize what is the source, what is the time frame, when was it set, because that also makes a difference in terms of the halachot, what is allowed, what is not allowed, and many different things that we will see. So if anyone could help us out, um, is Chanukah where is who set the framework for Chanukah, and when was Chanukah set to be a festival? In other words, we know that we have it in the yearly cycle, right, coming on Kafei Kislev, but when was it actually set, during which period? Just basic information. Anyone help us out? Okay, so Kuka, you're just writing the Rabbanan who is doing the Roman rule, I believe. Okay, so it's important to put the time frame. We're talking about we have different holidays that are from our sages. In other words, they were added onto the calendar. We know that we have a specific calendar of Chagim, of holidays that are set in the Torah, starting from they are written in the Torah as well. Our first holiday, according to the yearly calendar of the holidays, would actually be the month of Nisan. That is the beginning of the year. And so that is the first month. And then we have Pesach. But if we're counting according to our yearly calendar of the Hebrew calendar, we're not going to we explained that in the past. Then we start from Rosh Hashanah. But anyway, we know that we have the Chagim from the Torah, Pesach, Shavuot, we have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret. So these are the Chagim, these are the holidays that we have from the Torah. And also, one of the things that we know about these holidays is that melacha, right, is not allowed, as we have on Shabbat. Melachot are not allowed, right? It is melacha, we can say work, but we've explained in depth in the halachot of Shabbat. Melacha means creation. We have the 39 melachot, and then on Shabbat they are prohibited, and they are prohibited on the Chag as well. I'm just going through some basic information. Whereas we have two main holidays that are from Chachamim. We have smaller ones, like, for example, Tu B'Shvat, um, and we have so, right, we have even modern day Jewish holidays like Yom Ha'atzmaut that we have special prayers on, and Yom Yerushalayim. But these are smaller holidays. The two big holidays that we have from Chachamim, from our sages, are Chanukah and Purim, right? Chanukah and Purim, and I say it in that order because we're now in the holidays. We finished the holidays. with Simchat Torah, and then the next holiday that we know that we have is Chanukah, like we have now. However, according to the chronological order, so Purim actually comes before Chanukah. Purim was set at the end of the Persian Empire, before the Jews, before Ezra and Nehemiah, before they go back to the Second Temple, just at the end of the 70 years of exile, of the Babylonian exile of Nebuchadnezzar, and they are quite assimilated in the Persian Empire when we have the attempt to eradicate by Haman to kill all of the Jews. This was set as we understand this as a physical a attempt to kill all Jews, even though they were quite assimilated. So in a way, some can you see it, you can compare it in a way, not compare, I wouldn't use the word, but you say, okay, what did the Nazis want to do? It wasn't a spiritual, right? They weren't trying to take over spiritually. They didn't care what a Jew was doing, what he was not. Rather, it was just to kill all of the Jews. Chanukah comes at later than Purim, right? If we're talking about, right, the year around 168 before the Common Era. So we're talking about the Second Temple exists, but the during the time of the Greeks then, this was just before the Roman Empire. Kuko, you wrote the Roman, this is just before a change from the Greek to the Roman Empire. And during that time, we have the Second Temple, but we have a large level of assimilation of the Jewish people into the Greek culture. And the Greek culture was interested proactively to assimilate all of the different nations that were a part of their empire. And they wanted everyone to be a part, or to mix to have a multicultural empire, which also included idol worship. For them, it was a large part. And therefore, the Jews were threatened spiritually during this time because it was forbidden, for example, to keep the Shabbat. It was forbidden to circumcise, to do Brit Milah, and many other things. At a certain point, even the Torah learning was prohibited because the Greeks realized, and the king at the time, Antiochus, realized that this would keep the Jews autonomous, and therefore, part of the agenda was to wipe out their spirituality. Understanding this, so we just mentioned the period. We're talking about 168, 170 BCE. And then we know that the Second Temple was destroyed in the year 70 CE, right? So 70 in the year 70. So we're talking about right, a bit over 200 years before the end of the Second Temple, or sort of the middle of the period when the temple exists. But from the story of Chanukah, the basic story, we know that what happened, the reason that we light the Chanukah candle is that the entire nation had become impure, and as a result, also the Beit HaMikdash became defiled, and the spiritual light which was lit, the mitzvah in the Torah is that you light the menorah, the candelabra, in the temple every single day by the Kohanim, by the priests. So the story is that once the Maccabees, which were the fighting, it's actually one of the um, ideas of Hanukkah is that most of the Jewish people just accepted and said, what can we do? This empire is much stronger than us. There's not much we can do. But it was enough for one family to say, we will not accept this, and to begin fighting back, and to gather and to give the entire people, the strength to rebel against this great empire that was much larger than and stronger than them. So when they came into the temple, it had been defiled, and they couldn't find, and they assumed that they would not find any pure oil to light from. And so the story and part of the miracle of Hanukkah, there were two miracles. One is that they were able to find um, a can of olive oil, like a flask of olive oil that still had the seal of the high priest on it, meaning that it was pure. And second, when they lit it, they had only enough for one day, but it lit long enough for 8 days in order for them to make new olive oil and come back and to continue lighting from there. Symbolically, I think in many ways, this is it symbolizes the spiritual light, the eternal spiritual light that had not been extinguished by the Greeks, and that having this small hope was enough to rekindle the hope in all of the Jewish people. So, when we're talking about the months of darkness, especially in the Nordic countries when it's so dark, and when we have this, we realize that the symbol of hope is just having one small light that you can light from, and then you light more and more from each day onwards. There are many questions that can be asked about this. In other words, why um, even from the perspective I just shared, for example, if you found one, then the miracle was actually 7 days and not eight because you had enough for one. So why are you lighting 8 days? And many other questions that can be asked about this. But I think the basic notion is having the light and the hope to light from. And it's also a very simple mitzvah. This is a mitzvah from Chachamim, from Dirabanan, even though, right, we do say when we light the candles, we say Asher Kidishano b'mitzvotav, that God has given us the mitzvot. But this means that the Chazal, Hashem, right, gave the power to our Chachamim to set holidays. And this is one of the unique holidays that was set. So this was a sort of renewal of the temple. The word Chanukah actually means renewal. Um, um, or education as well comes from the same source. But Chanukat HaMizbeach, this is a renewal because we had lost our spiritual center, even though it was existing physically. According to some of the stories, the Greeks were even setting up idol worship in the temple itself. And just to spit in the face of the Jews, they brought pork inside the temple. So it was really defiling, really a spiritual. It was not serving as a spiritual center, and the Hashmonai family, the family of the Maccabees, came and reset that. Another thing just to mention is that this, even though we see it as a victory, the military victory was not actually final during Chanukah, and the war against the Greeks continued on afterwards. All of the Maccabees ended up being wiped out and killed. So if you say it as a military victory, well, there was a moment of victory, but afterwards it's not so simple. But since we see it as a spiritual victory, the fact that they were able to renew the temple and continue and rekindle that spiritual light and the hope, that was what was important. We also see it in a sense as set by our sages for the very future, knowing this is setting the light for the exile that would follow, because from this time, even though we say the temple was renewed, there was quite you can say that the temple was never the same, and it just led down 200 years to the fact that we ended up with so much hatred in the Jewish people and so many different sects and cults and political power that was overtaken by the priest family who no longer represented the spiritual. So from this point on, it really wasn't the same. So you could say that Hanukkah was this moment of light which set the light for the future darkness of 2,000 years. And it became very strong, I think, throughout our history, wherever we were. There's stories of, people saving their margarine in the concentration camps this little bit of margin that they had and gathering from everyone just to have enough to light one light and doing it in the darkness in the corner and just lighting it because it really symbolizes that light that we will overcome and we will persevere the darkness and our enemies. The song that we sing on Chanukah, Maoz Tzur, also talks about all of the different exiles that we went through. And I think this year, more than ever, it's really a powerful message that we have this light, we have this hope. We've been through a lot, and we will get through this together, however challenging it is. I also shared at the conference I was at in Germany, I said that there's when we light the Chanukah light, we light it in the home, but by the window. In other words, we have to make sure that we ourselves are sharing the light for ourselves even before we share it with others. And I think it's in the messaging this year, especially, not to get drawn into the evil itself, not to get drawn into the atrocities, not to get drawn into the terrible even witness accounts of what happened during this massacre, but to keep up the light and the hope and the positivity of everything, of all of the miracles and all of the incredible things that happened, and saving of lives and how strong we are as a Jewish people. So this is also the light and the message of Chanukah, I would say, is that we go and we say we are focusing on the positive and we're focusing on the light and on the hope. And one candle that we light on the first night just gets stronger and stronger every night. So we can talk a lot more about the meaning of Chanukah, but I actually want to go through the halachot itself. So just going very quickly through this chapter. So the first of all, the number of candles, right? What is the minimum that we need to light? Anyone? What do we need? How many candles do we need to light every
One.
night?
One.
Yes. Okay. So we have one candle. That's, in other words, if someone doesn't have any possibility to light, I mean, it's not a problem today. I think, especially in the um the amount of candles you have in the shops now for the seasonal lighting, right, that you have all the time. To find candles now is not a problem. But let's say you ran out and you're stuck somewhere. All you need to do is light one candle every single day. That's the basic. The reason we have an additional candle, even on the first night, is because the halakha is we're not allowed to use the candle for anything else. In order to that it remain pure and that it be a spiritual light, so we're not allowed to sit next to the Chanukah candles and actually read a book. So in order to make that clear and make sure we don't use it by mistake, let's say it's dark and we're using that light for something else. So we have an additional candle. It's called the shamash, and this is just something that we light the candles with, and then we will have it next to the other candles so that if we end up using the light, we're using from the additional light and not only from the Chanukah light. So every single night we have one candle that we are lighting, at least one, and then adding an additional one. Okay. Now, if it's a possibility, which should not be a problem at all, every day we're going to add an additional light to one more light. So the first night we light one, and then two, and then until we reach the final night in which we are lighting 8. Okay, who is lighting the Chanukah lights? Okay, anyone who can help us? Who's supposed to light?
It depends on your right, but for Sephardim, it can be the head of the house, and then everybody's blessed. But Ashkenazi, it's every member of the house.
Okay, right. So we have different customs, but I think it's beautiful in my mind, and we live in Ashkenazi countries, right? So if you have a specific custom you know from your family, then it's one thing. But if you don't, we should follow the Ashkenazi custom, which means that everyone lights and everyone can say the bracha and each person lights. It's actually sometimes we go down to on Chanukah, we our family we've gone on vacation to a hotel in Israel, and it's amazing to see 80 people or 100 people lighting Chanukah candles together. It's really a beautiful thing to see everyone lighting together. But in the home, it's especially something beautiful to teach the kids from a very young age. Yeah, I see we have a question about children. Great. So everyone can light, okay, including children themselves. So um, you can, as long as one thing is important, that you have a very clear distinction between the different Chanukiot, between, okay, the different lights. So that if someone is looking from a distance, you can see that you can count them out, because otherwise, right, if it's the third night and you have two of them together, someone's going to think it's the sixth night. So you should have some sort of separation or something making it clear that between the different Chanukiot, just to have a small space in between them. Okay, so in most of the mitzvot, we're used to the fact that men, for example, usually do the mitzvot. Um, we won't get into the reason why, but in the case of Chanukah, it specifically says that that is not the case. That women have the mitzvah just like men, and therefore women can make the bracha. If you are a married couple, a married Jewish couple, then you shouldn't fight over Chanukah lights, but you can decide who is going to do it. In many cases, it's usually the husband, but there's women can light as well. Okay, so even more so, one thing which is really quite relevant this year, if your husband in Israel is off on reserve duty, for example, like many, right, 360,000 men are mostly men. I would say, I don't know, I'm just guessing, 300,000 men might not be home for Hanukkah. That's quite a lot, right? That are not going to be home for Hanukkah. So they could light where they are sleeping, but what if they're out in the middle of on the front lines and then they're not able to light? So it specifically says that the woman of the home should be lighting, because the Gemara says, the Talmud says an important sentence, Ner ish uveto, that the light of Chanukah is connected to the home, because it's the spiritual light of our home that is giving us the light. So therefore, what is important is if someone is traveling, then the wife will light at home and do the mitzvah for him, even though he is not at home, and vice versa. If a woman is not at home, what is important is that the candles are lit where you are sleeping. So if you are traveling somewhere, then you should light where you arrive and not where you leave from. Okay, and so because the place where you sleep is considered your home, at least for that day. If you're in a hotel, it actually could be a bit problematic, and you could, or if you're sleeping over by someone, you could actually do the mitzvah together with them. They light for you, and you take part in the mitzvah. You can even give them, a korona or something, and say, "I want to be part of your mitzvah." This is what it says. So that because you should be in your home, this is the most natural place to light the Chanukah lights. But if you are traveling, then there's a different halachot. If you have a question, then you can ask your community rabbi exactly what you should be doing. So what about the time frame? So the time frame for lighting is from sunset, okay, until it's very unique, okay. Yeah, I'm going to look at the questions in a bit. Okay, so you can write any questions you have in the chat. Please do so, and I will go through them soon. The time frame is from sunset, or another custom is from when the stars come out, depending on the custom. Um, until when is the last time that you can light? Because the Hanukkah lights, you're not only lighting for yourself. The whole idea of Hanukkah light is that you are sharing the light and you are sharing the miracle that happened to us, right? Therefore, if you are lighting, you should light as long you can light as long as there are people who are going to see your light. What does that mean? If you're lighting outside and you have people who are passing by and you live in the middle of Copenhagen and people might be passing by at 11, 12 at night, then that's okay. But if you live in a sleepy town like Malmo and people are in a dark area, then right, it could be earlier than that. It could be in the middle of New York City. You can light at 3 in the morning because people are there all the time because people should be seen. But it doesn't only depend on the others. If you're living, if people are in the home and they are awake, then that's also okay. But if you're in an apartment alone, then you have to light it within the time frame as long as people are usually outside so they can be seen. On the same subject, um, if uh, if you are lighting, then you have to light at the eye level in which people will be able to see the Chanukah lights. So if you are lighting in a building and you're lighting, and there's no one else at your height level, then that is actually problematic, and you can light below. But in the cities that we live in today, since we have apartments across from us at the same eye level, that would be okay. Okay, I'm gonna just continue the where we actually light. So there's two options of lighting. And the ideal location would actually be to light outside the home. In Israel, for example, I light outside of my home, outside of the door, just opposite the mezuzah. So if the mezuzah is on the right hand side, I'm going to light on the left side so that the whole house is surrounded by mitzvot. We have the mezuzah on one side, the Torah, and then we have the Chanukah on the left side. And we're going to light outside. Why? Because you're sharing your light with the outside. However, in the diaspora, and it's actually quite beautiful if you go through Jerusalem streets during Chanukah, you'll see many, many people are lighting just in their courtyard. You have, let's say, 10 families living together, and they're all lighting together at the entrance to the courtyard, where that is the entrance to their home. And it's also sharing the light. It's almost like a mini communal setting, which is quite beautiful. But I think there's also meaning to the fact that in the diaspora we light inside, which I mentioned before, because you light inside the home because it's not practical to light outside, and it could also be dangerous. And even this year we realize even more so that unfortunately it could be dangerous, right? Uh, externally, and someone might even damage the Chanukiah, which would not be good. So we're lighting inside. Where should we light inside? We light next to the window so that we can share that with the outside. And as I mentioned before, I think there is some meaning to that. That this year especially, we have to keep the positive and we have to make sure we are lighting for ourselves, no less, before we are sharing with the others. So basically, it's good to know that the halacha is that to light outside of the house, but I think everyone here will probably be lighting inside, and that is perfectly fine. Um, if there's any danger whatsoever, or it's not practical, or the light is going to be blown out or something, then you just light inside, and it's completely fine. Um, Okay. What can we use to light the Chanukiah? So basically, we just have to make sure that what we are using is lasting long enough to um, the regular Hanukkah candles that we light last about, I would say, 20 minutes or so, and that half an hour, and that is completely fine. Normal candles that we have are fine. If one can light with olive oil, it's a special, right? It's a special mitzvah. That was the original, right? The Hanukkah was lit with the menorah in the temple was with olive oil, with pure virgin olive oil. So that would, if you one wants to light in a special way and add to the mitzvah, then yes, it's a nice thing to actually light with olive oil and you can put a floating wick inside, or you can just buy the wicks or set them yourself, and that is a special mitzvah, but it's not necessary, just something nice. Regarding the time of the lighting, one thing is important to mention, that before Shabbat, we actually were going to be lighting both the Chanukah candles and then Shabbat candles, because as soon as we light Shabbat candles, we can't light Chanukah because it's already Shabbat, right? So the order is first the Shabbat, first the Chanukah, and then the Shabbat. However, since we're lighting a bit earlier, and you'll see in your calendar, your community calendar, or ask your rabbi, when do we light the Chanukah? It should be just before the Shabbat candle lighting. But we need to have extra light, so that it actually keeps at least right into the night, because the Shabbat candles are lit earlier than Chanukah candles usually are. Therefore, Shabbat candles themselves, the Chanukah candles for Shabbat, have to be larger than the small Chanukah candles that we usually buy in the box. So either buy the thick candles, you can get these thick white candles in the regular supermarket, and they last for an hour, for 2 hours, for more, and that is fine. Or if you're lighting oil, then the oil should last long enough. Is everyone following me? Am I going too fast? Is it okay? I got a few hands up. Okay, so if anything is unclear, then just let me know. Okay. After Shabbat, we're going to do the opposite. After Shabbat, we're going to first finish the Shabbat, make Havdalah, which makes sense, right? We're going to first make Havdalah, and after that we do the Chanukah, because just again, before Shabbat, before Shabbat candles, we're lighting the Chanukah. After Shabbat, we're going to do the Havdalah, and then immediately light the Chanukiot. Okay, you have in the book, it explains in details, because sometimes it can get confusing, how the procedure of the lighting is called. So every day we're going to add a candle to the right of the previous candle. The new candle, in other words, if it's the second day, it's going to be on the right of the previous candle. You can see there's a illustration there so that you see. The shamash, right, the additional candle, it doesn't really matter where it is, as long as it's in the area. It can be even in it can be a separate candle. It doesn't need to be in the Chanukiah itself. Usually there's a spot in the Chanukiah in the middle, which is higher, so that you can see the difference between the shamash, the additional one, and the other ones. But it doesn't have to be. You can just put it as an additional candle somewhere else next to it. Let's talk about the brachot. So we have two blessings that we are saying every night. The first bracha is Asher Kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu ladlik ner shel Chanukah, and some say ner Chanukah, whatever custom. You can either say ner shel Chanukah or ner Chanukah, both are okay. And the difference being, if you say Ladlik Ner Chanukah, you're lighting the light of Chanukah. You're lighting the Chanukah light, and the second one is the light of Chanukah. So it's just a little, an additional word that is added there. And the second bracha is, the first bracha is that Hashem, you have given us your mitzvot and commanded us through your sages to light the light of Chanukah. And then the second one is Shasa nisim lavotenu bayamim mehem bazman hazeh, that you have done miracles for our fathers in these days, in this time, which also hints that the miracles were then and now, that the light that we're lighting also symbolizes the miracle of these days. And as I mentioned before, even regarding the massacres in October 7th, it's important. There's so many beautiful stories of miracles that happened, and small miracles and very big miracles that we can focus on within the evil. The evil is a choice that unfortunately evil people have made, and there are many, many miracles within these stories as well. So we have the two brachot that we're going to say every day. Every day we say these two brachot. And then the third bracha, Shehechiyanu, is whenever we have a new mitzvah that we haven't done um, in a year, right? Every Chag, then we add Shehechiyanu, Vikimanu, Vigiyanu, Lazman hazeh. The thank you, God, who has given us life and sustained us and brought us to this time. So the first night we're gonna light with 3 brachot. So prepare yourselves with the brachot. You can also practice in advance so that you know the brachot. The first night is going to be 3. And then from that point on, the rest of Chanukah, we're going to be saying 2 brachot before we light. Okay, and there is a prayer that you'll find in your sidurim, in which we say after. It's called Hanerot Halalu Anu Madikim. These lights, these candles we are lighting, and this is a prayer in which we express the background and the reason and the thankfulness that we have for the lights of Hanukkah. So I also suggest that you have a couple of days now, so you can practice, find this. And if you need the phonetic, it's always good to practice it in advance. But it's okay, of course, to say it in English or in any other language you feel comfortable if you find a translation. So just prepare yourselves before Hanukkah so that you have all of this ready. Okay, another important thing that to mention is that the Chanukah light, right? The mitzvah is very short. It's like a 5-minute or less mitzvah that we do every single night. What about the rest of the day? What are we doing to remind ourselves that it's Chanukah? So you can work. We go to work normally. You can drive a car. You can go on the bus. All of the melachot are allowed. So first of all, regarding that, is that there is a custom that is written in halacha that specifically women should not do milacha as long as the candles are burning. It's not necessary. In other words, if there's something that you need to do, it's okay. But it's a special the light. We always know that the spiritual light we know from Shabbat candles. It's connected specifically to women, and also the spiritual power that the women have to share with us and give us the light to enjoy. There are some also historical connections, like stories that are talk about the empowerment of women of actually saving many, many Jewish lives and keeping their purity in these times. There are, again, just a reflection of our times. There are very disturbing stories of how the Greeks would come and conquer and um, rape women when in the cities that they came over, and they would forcibly marry women, and that the women, and this was true throughout the empire, and it was true in Judea as well when they took over, and that the women, one of the midrashim has a very powerful story of how the woman stood up to this and actually encourage the men to stand up for them, for their um, and so this is one story. There's a story about actually a woman who seduced one of the commanders and killed him, one of the general commanders. So there's all of these stories about how the women strengthened this, connected both to that and to the spiritual light that we are sharing. So in order to commemorate this, so we say that the women are especially connected to Chanukah. So once you light the Chanukiah, it's a good thing just to sit by the Chanukiah and enjoy, right, and be with the spiritual light. So not to, you can light and finish it in 5 minutes or less, and then just go on. You're not supposed to. You should actually sit with the Chanukiah and be with the light And if you have a man in the house, he should be doing any melacha that is necessary so that you can actually focus on the light. So this is a custom, but it's brought down in halacha, and because of the prominent role that women played. So that is in terms of melacha, but the rest of Chanukah, melacha is allowed. We're allowed to do basically anything. So how do we remember Chanukah in the day? So we have two things that fit into the prayer and also to Birkat Hamazon. We have a special prayer called Al Hanisim that is added both in Birkat Hamazon, in the prayer after the meal, and also in the Tfilat Amidah, we will find it. So in the Tfilat Amidah, it's towards the end after Modim Anachnu Lach. So look in your, again, prepare yourself before Chanukah, so it's not last minute. Look in your Sidurim and look for the additional prayer and Amidah towards the end, and you will see that there's something called Al Anisim, and then it's split in two. One of them is for Purim, and the other one describes the background of Purim, and the other one, the miracle of Chanukah. So that is added. And also in Birkat Hamazon, just after the second paragraph, you'll see that we also have Al Anisim, so that this is added throughout Chanukah. So if you are eating, anytime we eat bread and we wash our hands and then we have Birkat Hamazon afterwards, so we're going to have this additional prayer of Al Hanisim. The other prayer that we add is the Hallel prayer, which is a special prayer of gratitude that we add during the different holidays, and we're going to add it each day of Chanukah after Shacharit. So you will also find it in your Sidurim. It won't be after Shacharit in your Sidurim, but rather in the holiday and Shabbat section of whatever prayer book you are using. So after Shacharit, we have this special prayer of gratitude. If you didn't manage to say it in the morning, you can say it as long as there's daylight. So if you're stressed in the morning and rushing to work and don't have time, you can, Shacharit needs to be in the morning, but the Hallel you can say later in the day. We also have, if you have a minyan and you're going to shul, so in places where we have a daily minyan, like in stronger Jewish communities, then we also have a special Torah reading that we are reading every one of the days. Okay, just to finish up with some um, it says here in the paragraph, you can look at it itself, additional customs which are during Chanukah, is that the special that we specifically have very not healthy food which is has oil or cooked in oil, like latkes, for example. So once a year you can indulge yourself in very fatty. This is, of course, to remind us. It's always in the Jewish year we connect the food to the holidays, like we have, for example, the apple and honey, and for education also, it's something that kids will remember their whole life. The special foods that they had in special times. So we have special food on Chanukah, which is connected to milk and oil, and so that and another custom that we have is Chanukah Geld, that you give out presents and you give out money, especially to the kids. Um, Historically, it might be also connected to the fact, yes, thank you, sufganiyot. Do not forget the sufganiyot. And which is also comes from the oil, right? That they are supposed to be deep fried in oil. You're not allowed to have healthy sufganiyot. I'm sorry, healthy sufganiyot baked in the oven. I think it's really it's not okay. You have to have the whole idea is the oil, and that it's yummy. So that is okay regarding the sufganiyot. Chanukah Geld, also, I do think, and I think you can understand in the countries that you are in now, that there is sort of it is important to make Hanukkah special because of all of the, uh, you know, the 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 Christmas setting around us, and the fact that it draws kids, and kids might be competing with each other. What did you get? And I think that that is also, the fact that Hanukkah is extra special for our kids, so then they're not drawn elsewhere into Christmas, etc. So I think there is a connection in that, in an understanding connected to the idea of giving presents and money, etc. So to counter that, but we can have a longer conversation maybe sometime about that. So I think we've gone through, the dreidel. I'm just looking here. We play games after, we light the Chanukah. Again, as we said, if you're lighting the Chanukah, you don't want to be watching, you don't turn on the TV now. It's a time to enjoy the Chanukah. So that's, I think, also one of the ideas. If we're playing games next to the Chanukah and at the same time enjoying the light. So we have dreidel games, right? Or even card games, or different things that we have, that it's also a time to can read the story of Hanukkah and the miracles of Hanukkah um, as well. Okay, I see at the end of the chapter here, it says, for the hidden significance of the letters and the dreidel, see a concise guide to Machshava, page 406. So in the complementary book, which gives a bit of Jewish philosophy, there's also a chapter on Hanukkah, which we have not touched at all, or just a bit, I would say, during this shiur. I see we have some questions in the chat. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so children, we touched upon that the children can definitely light and make the bracha as well. But the difference, the only thing with children is that the children don't have the mitzvah at the same level as the parents. So they cannot light for the parents. They have to light for themselves, but not for the parents. So if you have children in the house that are lighting, you have to have one that you are lighting for the mitzvah of the home, and then the children can light additional Chanukah. Okay, what if we're doing a candle lighting event outside? Um, what you're lighting outside is great, is wonderful for the Pirsume Nisa, to share the miracle and to share the strength, the inner strength of the Jewish people. However, you do not it's not considered that you have done the mitzvah if you have been to a Chabad lighting event at the square, at Stortoriet, for example. Okay, so even if you've gone to a very beautiful event, that at the synagogue, at your community center with Chabad, you still have to light at home according to the time frame that we have set. So make sure that that you do so. And if it was not clear before, we should light as soon as we can. I'm not saying wait for as late as possible, but if the circumstances are that you cannot. But of course, we should try to plan our day that as soon as we can, we come home from work, and the first thing that we do is we light. Uh, um, okay. Is it okay to light floating candles on water or ice? No. And we actually need to light based on oil. Okay, so we have to I it should be based on it should be based that whatever it is actually coming from should be oil. So I don't know what these floating candles are. If it's lighting, if it's coming from the candle itself or from what is floating, then it's a regular candle. I don't care what the base is, but we need to make sure that it's coming from either that it's being lit from the candle itself or from the oil below. Can I keep the Chanukah Nerot burning 4 hours? You can keep them all night if you want. That's fine. It's very beautiful to have the Chanukah. I put mine with a lot of oil so that it just keeps going. It's very nice. But there's not necessary. And after the specific time frame, you can even put them out if it's dangerous, if you need to go elsewhere and you don't want to leave them, but only after the time frame, after it's been, let's say, 20 minutes into the night. Um, um, so you could put them out or you can keep them. Of course, it's very, um, nice just to have the Chanukah light in the background. Okay, we did not touch the songs of Chanukah, so you are welcome also as you prepare yourselves for Chanukah to go through the different songs, teach yourself the songs with the transliteration. They're very simple songs, and then there's also like I see here Sivivon, Sof Sof Sof, Chanukah, for example, but yeah, I see Benny's already getting into it. But there's also Mao's Tour, which we mentioned before, which is we mentioned that there's a song that that goes through all of the exiles that we have gone through. I do want to suggest, not as necessary, but I want to suggest that this year of Hanukkah, there is a blessing for the soldiers and for the captures that we are saying in the synagogues. And I want to suggest to everyone, or if I will look for it if there is a transliteration of it, because I would suggest that we say it with our Chanukah candles, that we send our light and our hope and our blessings to those who are literally in darkness for almost 2 months now. And for all of our Chayalim who are in darkness and not able to light the Chanukah candles. And I think it's very special for Am Yisrael throughout the world to come together through this Chanukah and share the light. So I will look if I can find a transliteration of this special prayer, and you can add it to you can add both of them to both for the captured and for that Hashem should watch over our Chayalim as they go and take Bezrat Hashem, get rid of this evilness from this world. So um, okay, just again, if we're onto this, the water being the substance being lit, it's just the candles that contain. As long as it's candles, it's fine. Candles are candles, but I would stick to the traditional Chanukiah, but I don't see it as a problem to have something as long as it's a candle. I'm just coming back to the chat room. Okay, so I will look for the special prayer. I suggest that you just go on YouTube yourself or elsewhere, find the brachot and practice the brachot so that you have them ready. Find the tefillot. We talked about Al Nisim that you can be adding to Birkat Hamazon for 8 days, and the Hallel prayer. So prepare yourself and get yourself ready for Chanukah so that you are when Chanukah begins. Okay, so I want to wish us all Bezrat Hashem, bless us all. First of all, that we keep the light and the positivity with Chanukah coming, that we realize that one small light can light up the world, and that one small light can light up our homes, and that we focus on that. And we focus on sharing light with each other, because what Hamas and part of the psychological terror that they're trying to do is to destroy our souls. And Hanukkah is the opposite, that we don't let them do that in any sense. We keep our souls pure and with the light and not with what they are trying to do to us. And they're doing it through propaganda and through media and through terrible videos and different things. And we should not get into that. Sharing the light and keeping with ourselves is what is important. And realizing that we have endured a lot. And every year for 2,000 years, we have lit the light, whatever circumstances we have been in, and we will continue to do so this year. And also realize, as we said before, we're lighting inside, but we are sharing with the outside that this is our message to the world. This is our true message. And also lighting for those who can't light this year, and realizing that spiritual light is infinite. And if we light wherever we are, in Copenhagen and in Helsinki, in Malmo, wherever we're lighting, we have to believe that this light is reaching our soldiers and those captured. This is spiritual light that can reach everywhere. Hamas do not have an iron dome to stop our spiritual light. So they're not going to stop us, and we will. This is our message on Hanukkah. And so I hope we take all of this in a good way, and that we feel the strength and the power of this as we light from one becomes two, it becomes three, becomes four, every night getting stronger and stronger, believing in the miracles that Bezrat Hashem, Halevai, that we go through Chanukah and more, and miracles happen, and we find the captured and just pull them out, and the hostages, and we have miracles, and we, beautiful things happen that we cannot imagine. And one last thing I do want to mention is, how many people have been traumatized, and they need this special light right now from us, from all of us, whatever we can do for them. So it's a very, very special time as we come close to Chanukah. So, Bezrat Hashem, next week will already be Chanukah, but we will meet again next week, and I'm very glad that we have restarted the shiurim. So, Chanukah Sameach to everyone, and Am Yisrael Chai. We will, Bezrat Hashem, we will share the light with each other.
Thank you. Chag
Hanukkah
Sameach.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
you talked about the PDF.
Yes, if you receive the email about this, then just send me an email back that you need a PDF of the books, and I will share it with whoever does not have it.
Okay,
And I can
great.
also share, if I find this, the 2 prayers that I mentioned, I'll also share them with you. Okay?
Thank
And
you.
we will, for everyone who's new here, we also have a YouTube channel where we upload all of the recordings, and I will do so. And everyone is welcome on Wednesdays as well to our shiurim, our special series that we have now, faith during these challenging times, emunah. So everyone is welcome there as well. Okay, Chanukah Sameach to everyone.
Hanukkah
Eh,
Sameach.
Shabbat Tov.
Shabbat
Shabbat Tov.
Shabbat Tov.
Sameach.